We're required to play in those realms that particles such as electrons and photons can exhibit both wave-like and particle-like behaviors depending on how they are observed or measured. There is an infinite number of frequencies that you can tap into. Your intentions become that part of you that becomes more focused and particle-like. So as the observer, you tune into a specific frequency. Today, we are talking again, all things manifestation. Today, we're going to talk about the science behind manifestation. Specifically, we're exploring 5 quantum physics principles. So this is where I get to really geek out on my science background. I love having real world data that backs up the things that I know intuitively and the things that I feel and the things that I've been raised with in the form of energy, experience, kind of that knowingness. Having that connection between science and manifestation, because it's definitely an intersection between science and manifestation. And quantum physics, even though it's a new science, really starts to shed light on a lot of the things that we know intuitively. So when we talk about quantum physics, what is that? It's the realm of the unimaginably small. It's the tiniest of tiniest particles. And even as we talk about that, I imagine even in our lifetime, they're going to be exploring or discovering science that even goes well beyond the tiny, I don't even know if tiny is an appropriate word, but the infinitesimally small world of quantum. And so quantum is the realm of subatomic particles, but it touches the essence of our reality. And I say touches again, because I believe that we're going to be learning a lot more about this universe, about the paradox of the universe, and how things work on a really big level. And so we're going to explore 5 quantum theories that really have real world connections to manifestation, and we're going to geek out a little bit. So excuse me if I use some big words or kind of go into some scientific stuff, but I will try to bring it home for us and really explain what that means for us and how that determines what's required of us in order to manifest things that we desire. And again, when I talk about manifestation, it's not that we're all like greedy mothers, who just want the big house and the big cars and all that stuff. It's really about understanding the power of the universe and the power that we're tapped into. So when I do talk about manifestation, I'm talking about really practicing with how powerful we are. So we're required to play in those realms. We're not required to go through the daily rigmarole, the motions of our day-to-day life. We're here to explore the vast immenseness, the beauty, the power, the incredibleness of the universe that we live in. And so that's what we're tapped into. So I'm always going to emphasize that, because again, this isn't about material manifestation. We use that to understand how powerful we are, and we use that to tap into the limitless possibilities that is available to us in the universe, rather than playing small. We're not here to play small. So the 5 principles at its core are principles like, number 1, the wave-particle duality. So the wave-particle duality is the first principle that really, I would say it's the first one that quantum physics really dove into. And it's looking at where particles exist both as waves and particles. And so the wave-particle duality is a fundamental concept. Again, it's one of the first that was explored, that suggests that particles such as electrons and photons can exhibit both wave-like and particle-like behaviors depending on how they are observed or measured. And so there's a big experiment. In our Millionaire Inner Circle, I showed the video of how when one experiment was done, you could see the particles exhibit wave-like patterns, and when there is another observation that's done, you could see the particles exhibited what did I say, wave-like particle like evidence. And so what this does is it blows out our notion that, or the idea that things are as they seem. You know, one of the things that I decided as a young person, and I knew for sure as a young person, is there's more than what we see with our eyes. I knew there was something more to the universe than what we could taste, what we could feel, what we can experience. And this expresses that, this proves it, that depending on how things are observed, things can be a wave or things can be a particle. And so, what does that mean for us? This highlights that there's an inherent probabilistic and dynamic nature of the quantum world. So things can exist in different states until observed. Once they're observed, they collapse into a single state. You're looking for waves, you see waves. When you look at it a different way, you see particles. And so it's all based on the observer. It's what are you focused on? Same thing like the radio waves. You know, radio waves are all around us. You can literally tune into, an infinitesimal, infinite amount of frequencies. So radio waves can be quantized into particles called photons. So your intentions are just like that. There is an infinite number of frequencies that you can tap into. Your intentions become that part of you that becomes more focused and particle-like. So as the observer, you tune into a specific frequency. You tune into a specific wavelength. And now that becomes a particle. It's no longer a wave that's moving. It becomes a point in time. It becomes something that's observable. It becomes something that's specific. It becomes something that now you can see and you have evidence for. It's no longer just a possibility. So your intentions, when they're focused, become particle-like. When you concentrate your energy and intention, it's like tuning your intention wave into a specific station. It's like saying, even, you know, I've got my cellular phone. When I dial a certain number, I mean, how many phone numbers how many specific combinations of numbers can I type into my phone? And depending on the combination, I can get one of a billion people, correct? Right? And again, it's a frequency. So your energy, your intention is like fine tuning your intention into a specific station, into a specific frequency, into a specific object of desire. So the focused attention on that desired outcome can increase the likelihood of the outcome manifesting. So there's always the question of, what are you tuning into? What are you tuning into? Wealth is a frequency. Poverty is a different frequency. Loving relationships is a certain frequency. Abusive relationships is a different frequency. Health and vitality is one frequency. Cancer is a different frequency. What are you focused on? And again, that focus creates that laser light into the intention, into that particle. It turns all of these possibilities into that one specific particle. You tune into that station. Now, how disciplined are you with your intention? It's a question I want you to ask yourself right now. What frequency are you tuning into? And again, I've said this a number of times, is, you know, people may say, well, I do my affirmations, or I have my vision, or I read, you know, what my desires are every morning. Fabulous. Great. I love it. I will applaud you. But what are you focused on the rest of the 16, 18 hours that you're awake? Do you read your intentions and focus on wealth and abundance and health and vital relationships in the morning or in the evening or sometime during the day? You read it kind of half awake. And again, there's value in first thing in the morning, right? We'll save that for another discussion. But do you read it once and then go through your day stressed? angry, worried, full of anxiety over the bills, over what's not happening, over things not being there. So we want to start to tune into that frequency. You know, what happens when we're not quite tuned in? I've been on drives to Vegas often where I tune into one frequency, but as I travel, you know, frequencies shift, right? I've got to fine tune that a little bit. And what am I getting? I'm getting a little bit of both worlds. I'm getting a little bit of country and I'm getting a little rock and roll. Is there a song like that? Little country, little rock and roll. I'm kind of in the middle of two worlds, right? I have to keep fine tuning that because it's starting to get fuzzy. It's starting to get staticky. It's starting to get distracted. So how often are we paying attention? So we turn all those possibilities into a specific intention, focusing on what we desire. So that's the wave particle duality. The second quantum physics concept we're going to talk about is the uncertainty principle. So the uncertainty principle states that certain pairs of properties of a particle, such as position, where it's at, and momentum, how quickly it comes to us, cannot be precisely measured simultaneously. The more accurate we know one property, the less accurately we know the other. And it's not due to limitations in our measurements, but it's a fundamental characteristic of the quantum world. So what does that tell us? There is inherent uncertainty in the nature of subatomic particles and their behavior. It's a reminder that there are limits to how precisely we can know the behavior of these tiny, tiny building blocks of the universe. What does that mean for us? There's an unpredictability in the fabric of this existence, of this universe. It's an inherent unpredictability. So why do we need to understand that? When we set intentions and visualize our desires, there might be an inherent uncertainty in the exact path those desires will take to materialize. It's not that our intentions are ineffective. It's that the universe's unfolding is complex and influenced by numerous factors. We have to make room for the universe to give us our desires in the way that works with universal laws. One of the things that one of the affirmations I would tell myself when I was going through a really, really rough time is there's something unfolding here of which I know not. I have my intention. I have my desire. I know what I desire. And all this stuff's happening. And I have to trust that there's something about this that I don't know, because why? I don't have the view of everything going on, this wild tapestry of this universe. I don't know how everything fits together. This is a complex universe. This quantum universe we live in. And again, quantum is a very limited word in my mind. This quantum soup, as Deepak Chopra used to always say, its unfolding is very complex, and it's influenced by numerous factors, which we'll never know about. The most incredible genius we'll never know about. I saw Flash last night. What a bizarre movie to represent what is happening, what we'll be sharing today. And I'll tell you, I decided on this concept before I watched the movie. And if you haven't seen Flash, it's, he runs really, really fast, and then he finds that he can run to the past. And he starts messing with the past. And one of the great, beautiful concepts is, we think of life as linear, like a straight line. You got the past, you got the future. And his mentor, I won't share the punchline, used a dried noodle. He was making spaghetti as he was talking. So, the dried spaghetti, so past, present. And he says, and what you did is you converged the past and the future, which means you changed the past and you changed the future. And the way he described this is you've got one line of spaghetti, and then you've got another line. So you've got now an X, and that point where the two intersect, that's the place where he kind of messed with the past. He went back into the past and shifted something. And he says, you didn't change this line. What you did is you created a new line. So you have now a different past and now a different future. And he says, but it's not even that simple. What you did is you tapped into infinite possibilities. And now you've just created this web of possibilities. And what he did at that point is he threw a bunch of cooked spaghetti onto a plate. No longer is this a straight line. And that's how I see the universe. The complexness of it is just like, you have this cooked spaghetti. So all the noodles are interacting with each other and they're all swirling, and you can't identify the past and present and future and all that stuff, because there's infinite possibilities, and shifting one will shift all of it. So again, this sets the foundation for our manifestation is understanding that we focus on what we want. We focus on our desires. We focus on our manifestations. But how the universe is going to get us there is not our problem. We're in the present moment. We take action that's inspired in this present moment. And we may desire something, and there may be a roundabout way that we have to get there. Why? Because there's a million other things that have to unfold in order for that to happen. So when I start to control things, when I start to say, well, I have to, go to this stop and then the next stop and then that third stop to get to Vegas, what happens if there's a roadblock? What happens if, the universe wants me to get there, but there's supposed to be an accident at the time I'm supposed to be at that intersection? What happens if, there's a number of possibilities that the universe has to maneuver around? And the universe has that eagle eye perspective. We don't. So when we talk about this uncertainty principle, we have to allow for the universe to do its job. We have to allow for God, whatever you want to call it, to do its job. And so that takes a bit of faith. And we talked recently about faith. I don't know if that was in our last, maybe our Millionaire Inner Circle. We talked about faith, and faith is the belief in the unknown. It's the belief in the unknown. It's the conviction in the unknown, so that we don't have to try to go in and keep checking on it. We know that this is going to happen. And if it doesn't, then it's going to be even better than we imagined. As long as we stay conscious, as long as we stay aware, because this is not a permission to be unconscious, to go through life unconsciously. And this is not permission to be, resigned to life. There's a difference between surrender and resignation. Most people think they're surrendering to God, surrendering to the universe. And what they're really doing is there's a resignation there. There's like, I don't want to take responsibility, so you do it. And sometimes that's required because I've spent so much time controlling the universe. So there's a time and a place, but there's a difference, and we have to consciously be aware of what that difference is. That surrender might be, I tried everything, and now I'm going to give this up to you, the universe, God, whatever it is you want to call it. The third concept is superposition. This is a concept that emerges from quantum mechanics, and it's a bit like both and scenario rather than either or. So it suggests that until we measure or observe a particle, it can exist in a combination of multiple states at once. It's kind of like flipping that coin, right? We flip it in the air, we've got the heads and we got the tail section. We don't know where it's going to land, but the possibilities is both of them are there simultaneously right now. Both are available right now. So what this means is this particle isn't randomly jumping around. It's sort of in this blended state. It's only when we observe it that it chooses one state. We flip it in the air and it's turning around. It's got a head. We could actually see it, right? We could see, oh, heads, tails, and we're crossing our fingers saying, whichever one you chose, so that you can, go first in that football player, whatever it is. But until it lands, it's still a possibility. So again, this highlights the fact that our desires in manifestation can be seen as existing in, again, a superposition of potential outcomes. Until you focus your intent and energy on what it is you desire, it's like your intentions are simultaneously in different states. I could be, married, or I could be single for the rest of my life. I could be living in California, or I could be living in this other place for the rest of my life. And again, let me take back the rest of my life. I never want to put out the rest of your life. We're on this journey, right? So everything's always unfolding. But there's two possibilities. There's two possibilities. And it's, there's a Schrodinger's cat experiment. You guys ever heard about that? Where a cat inside a closed box is potentially considered both alive and dead at the same time, until that box is opened. It can be either one. And, when I first learned this, and I'll tell you, I have to go back to my journals because I don't remember it, but I used to experiment with this all the time. Gosh, I was in my 20s. And I have journals from that time because I was experimenting with time stopping, like literally stopping time. It's incredible how this works. And I would love to, I had to stop doing that for reasons I'll share with my clients. But I was also experimenting with this flipping the coin thing. I would have two options, and I would really put my energy and focus on the one. And it's fascinating how when you train yourself to do that, you can literally create what it is you desire. Because for me, it was easier to kind of play with the two options. It's like you've got a box, and it can, again, go both ways. I wasn't experimenting with boxes. I was experimenting with real life stuff. It can literally go both ways. But when you put all your intention and all your focus and all your energy on the one, it was pretty cool to see what happened. And so that's again an important concept. And why do I talk about this? Because again, it's that power of your focused energy. Again, some of you might be thinking, I'm going to get this client, or I'm not going to get this client. And then you're talking about how, well, what's going to happen if they don't sign up with me, or they don't work with me, or they cancel my contract, or they, don't buy the car, or whatever it is, or they don't buy, the business I'm selling. And that's a possibility, absolutely. And the other possibility is that they will buy the car, they will buy, or sign this contract, or they will, do XYZ that will work in your favor. Well, either one is a possibility. But when we understand quantum physics, is where are you putting your energy towards? Are you putting it in the thing that you don't want, or are you putting it in the thing that you do want? Because when you put the thing in what you do want, you start to hone in on that particle in the quantum sea of possibilities. Focusing on what you want starts to, again, hone in, bring that energy into that one particle that you desire versus the one you don't. So you want to always check yourself. Always check yourself. What are you picking out in the universe? So the next concept is superposition. This is a concept that emerges again from quantum physics. We just talked about superposition. That's the dual side. Entanglement says that particles are instantaneously communicating regardless of distance. Mother's intuition is a great example of this. It's like, how do I know when I have a newborn in the next room that he just woke up? Because he woke up and he's thinking mom, and I get that exact same thought. How is it that siblings, across the continents know when something is going on with each other? There's been tests where one particle was stimulated in one part of the world, and that, I guess they split the particle, or they did somehow they're connected, but they moved that particle to another part of the world. When they stimulated this particle on this part of the world, that one had a reaction, just like this one. So this talks about two or more particles that are deeply interconnected in ways that, again, we're still trying to not trying to figure this out. The experiment, the science is showing it, but it's showing us how powerful and how interconnected and how there are no accidents in this universe, and how powerful we are to shift and maneuver and create and be part of this creative world. You know, everyone asks, well, what's the purpose of life? I believe the purpose of life is to create, tap into the possibilities of our life. So when particles become entangled, their properties become entangled as well. They become linked, so that knowing the state of one particle immediately tells you something about the state of the other, no matter how far apart they are. It can be on different sides of the planet. It can be anywhere on the universe. They can be light years apart even. And when you affect one, the other is changed. Butterfly effect, same thing. If you've ever heard of the butterfly effect, this exact same, that's what this is. So again, this is a concept that really helps us understand how, when we shift one thing, and that shift can be a thought, that shift can be a desire, that shift can be a decision that we make. And when we make that decision, if you believe in your power and your ability, and you believe that the universe is a conspiring universe that conspires in your favor, when you make that decision, then the universe starts to conspire in your favor and starts to make all the necessary shifts, changes, adjustments that are required for you to have that thing that you desire. So your desires, and what this also means is, this is why time is required in our manifestations. And believe you me, I am not a patient person. And I had an astrology reading, like a Vedic astrology reading, like 20 years ago. And she said, oh yeah, you're here to learn patience. So I'm 52. Okay, I'm very patient. And I am here to learn patience, apparently, because what I've learned to do is plant that seed and be okay waiting. So my manifestations, although sometimes they come at snap of a finger, you know, I've had to learn and really step into that level of trust no matter what. And I'll tell you, the universe has pleasantly surprised me on a daily basis. And so your desires are intertwined with this vast web of possibilities. And it resonates with, you know, again, all these different timelines that are possible, and all these different desires that are possible. Because if I'm looking to manifest, let's say I want to manifest a soulmate, well, guess what? There's another person involved. And so the universe has to conspire to have the two of us meet. And, you know, our soul contracts and our history and all these things that have to be conspired together for me to manifest what I want. If I want to manifest the house, well, someone lives in that right now. So that all has to be worked out as well. So our individual intentions might be part of a larger tapestry of collective desires. Other people's desires, other people's wants, other people's needs, and then they may have to take those steps as well. And guess what? They may make a decision that says no. And at that point, the universe has to course correct, right? Okay, this person decides to stay in this bloodless, you know, abusive relationship, and they're making that choice. Okay, now we got to figure something else out. Not that it's that, I mean, I believe these are already figured out in you know, in essence, And it's, you know, a beautiful interweaving of an unfolding, kind of like a symphony. Everything may seem very individual and may seem very separate, and may seem very you know, like a noise. But when you have this, you know, I talked about this in a Manifestor Dreams, you know, when you have a symphony practicing, everyone's kind of on their own little program, right? They're tuning, they're practicing the violin, the cello, the piano, all this stuff. It's like this cacophony of noise. It's crazy. Sounds horrible. And all of a sudden the conductor comes and taps. Everyone gets quiet, and then now they play in concert with each other. That's how the universe works. So we want to see our intentions as threads interwoven in the universe's fabric, as part of this universal symphony that's playing out beautifully. So this is also a reminder in a positive way that our desires hold the potential to ripple through the quantum realm. So it forms connections that are far-reaching and profound, and can create exponential impact on the universe. But it also reminds us that our desires hold the potential to ripple through the quantum world. And so we have to be very conscious of what we put out. That's why I never control anyone. That's why I never put intentions for other people. I have no idea what their path is. I have no idea what their learning is. I have no idea. So I'm never going to set an intention for somebody else. I'm only going to set an intention for myself. I'm also never going to set a negative intention. So we're always thinking about ecology. Is this good for me? Is this good for others? Is this good for the planet? And that's with everything. We think about that in business. We think about that in relationships. We think about, what are we putting out? And because what we're putting out has this ripple effect, we have to be responsible for that. Why do we have so much pain and destruction and death and negativity in this world? Because people are not being responsible for what they're putting out. So there's creating this ripple effect that is bringing down the planet. So we have to be responsible for that. And the final quantum principle is the observer effect. And this is kind of the most, you know, again, all of these principles work in concert with each other. So it's not like there's, obviously quantum, right? Quantum, everything's interwoven. So these aren't distinct. They aren't separate. They don't work on its own. They work in concert with each other. But if we were to pull out specific concepts that help us understand how we need to tap into this knowledge to understand what we're doing when we're manifesting, to understand what the law of attraction really is, to understand, why do I say affirmations, to understand, why do I need a vision board, to understand, why do I need to focus on what I want, that this is the reason. These all work in concert together. And so the last one's the observer effect. And this is simply that observing a quantum system influences its behavior. It's a fascinating concept. It shows how the act of observing or measuring a particle can actually influence its behavior. It's like saying that the simple act of watching something changes something. When we observe something, we force it to choose a specific state, right? Everything is a possibility until we hone in on it. So at that point, we're choosing, I'm focusing on this one particle. That's the observer effect. All of a sudden, the whole universe has collapsed into this one thing that I'm focusing on. We force it to choose a specific state from many possibilities. Before we observe it, it's fuzzy. It's kind of in that soup, quantum soup. All possibilities are there at once. And so what we have to understand is there is that relationship between the observer, the active observation, and the behavior of the particles being observed. In NLP, we talk about when we look at something, when we look out in the world, we're not really seeing the world. Our consciousness, or not our consciousness, our experience takes in our, and when I say experience, I mean our senses, right? That's how we experience the world. Takes in, depending on who you ask, anywhere from 2 to 5 million bits of information per second. What does that mean? There's like, thousands of bits of information on my laptop. The blue background on Robert's, on Robert's screen, Abby's letters on her, the books that Linda has, the sound that's coming off of my computer, the hum, the echo of my own voice. And there's thousands just in this right here, not to mention everything else that's around me. My toe has a feeling. Your left toe has a sensation that you were not aware of until right now, when you start paying attention to it. What does that mean? Out of the million bits of information that are available to me per second, I can only focus on 120 plus or minus, a few that I can consciously take in. What does that mean? I'm deleting, distorting, and generalizing everything else. I'm only focused on what my filter will bring in. So my observer is only going to pay attention to what I'm allowing in, meaning more of the same, meaning what I'm used to, meaning what my conscious awareness will allow me to take in. Everything else is noise. So when we talk about the observer effect, is what are you choosing to pay attention to? Many have said this is a tough financial situation we're in. What are you focusing on? Possible recession, lack of, the news, the stock market, or are you focused on the possibilities? More millionaires have been made in times of recession than at any other times in the world, on the planet, or times in history, I should say. What are you focused on? Two people can be staring at, 10-foot waves. One is a professional surfer. One had a near drowning accident. They're going to experience the 10-foot waves completely different. One is going to get excited and run towards it. The other one's going to fear and run away from it. What's the difference? It's the same beach, same waves, same ocean, same water. It's both of them have different past experiences. So consciousness is what we want to start to tap into. Become the observer in your life. Consciousness plays a significant role in shaping the world around us. Why? Because it determines what we focus on. Your conscious attention becomes a catalyst for change. As you visualize and direct your thoughts toward your desires, you're not just an external observer, you're an active participant in your life, in the creation of your life, in this quantum world. So what does this mean for us? You have to be mindful of the power of your awareness. Just as particles respond to being watched, your intention responds to your focused intent. Your conscious presence is like a spotlight that illuminates the path of your manifestation. Your conscious awareness, your conscious intention, your conscious focus determines what you will focus on, the direction you will go, where your attention will be. And because we place that attention, we start to tune into that frequency. And because we tune in that frequency, guess what we get? Whatever we're focused on, whatever we're tuned into, the frequency, the output of that frequency. So the idea of thoughts creating waves that ripple out into the universe, you've heard me talk about that when we think a thought, and we talk about, we could talk about words and beliefs and all that difference, but let's just make it easy. You think a thought creates waves that go out into the universe, and our focus starts to hone in on what it is that matches our thoughts, matches our frequency. And then our emotions become a magnet to that thing that matches the frequency. And so that becomes a magnet for anything that matches what we desire, that will that will give us what we're focusing on. That becomes a magnet, drawing that energy back. And the simultaneous waves, meaning you've got waves going out, waves coming in, creates a moment in time. It's a timeless moment. And what happens at that time? Time stops, and that's where our manifestation becomes a particle. That's when we can see the object of our desire. That's when we can literally manifest in an instant. And it's a process. And people have been able to manifest in an instant. And some of you have had a thought, and all of a sudden someone knocked on the door and gave you that thing you were thinking about. And you just happen to be tuned in. Who knows how, why? You somehow went through all these steps and tapped in and were tuned in. And like Abraham Hicks says, and turned on. Which you say tapped in, tuned in, turned on. And you just happen to get that thing that you were thinking about. Let's just make it more of your reality. The rule rather than the exception. All right, so we'll see you next time. Lots of love. Please comment. Let me know what your takeaway was, what you got from this, and we'll see you next time. Bye.